Alright, Q&A it's a getsu nico nico getsuyobi. Today is October 31st, 2022, Pacifica, California, 12 miles south of San Francisco, California, United States of America. The temperature low is 48 degrees Fahrenheit, and the high is about 64 degrees Fahrenheit. Before I start talking about the three key indicators today, let me take a real quick sip. The best beer of the day is the sip that you're able to take once you locate your beer. Okay, here. Kanpai Chinchin Chayo. Oh, yeah. Little Def Leppard in the background. Pyromania 83. Where were you? 1983. I don't know if you'll notice, but this is Pyromania. This obi right here, in Japan, when you buy albums, record albums, they give you this, what's called the obi. This is a Hysteria Def Leppard obi. So when I got this used, whoever put this on here put the wrong one on. So, but it's kind of cool, I guess. But it's Pyromania, not Hysteria. Pyromania came out years before Hysteria, so this is kind of impossible if this was this is the original vinyl, but obviously it was sitting at a vinyl store and something happened and somebody put the wrong obi on here. All right, that put aside. Going to talk about the three key indicators, temperature indicators. This is, and it's, for me, it's been pretty helpful. Again, temperature, 60 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 15 degrees Celsius. 50 Fahrenheit, which is 10 degrees Celsius. And 44 Fahrenheit is 6.5 degrees Celsius. And why am I mentioning the Celsius? I think a lot of the information that we see over here in the United States, at least, because there's a lot more going on with medakas in Japan, people talking Celsius, right? So before I talk about the three key indicators, the temperature indicators, it's easy. If you're reading some article written in Japanese and when they're giving you all these centigrade, all you have to do is remember this one formula. I don't know when the last time you had to memorize a formula. Maybe it was in grade school or whatnot. But if you're reading an article online and if they're saying 15 degrees Celsius, so it's Celsius times, you multiply that by 1.8. And then you add 32. And the number you get is going to be Fahrenheit. So 50 is or 10 Celsius is an easy number, right? So 10 Celsius times 1.8 and add 32. And that'll give you like 49.9, but I just round off the decimals. But that's a good formula to know, just because I think a lot of the information about Medaka online, they're in Japanese and you'll see the Celsius instead of the Fahrenheit. So it's a good formula to have in your head. All you have to know is the 1.8 and the 32, right? You could go backwards too. If you are in anywhere outside of the US that uses the metric system, like in the UK, right? They don't call it quarter pounder with cheese. It's grams, right? Or kilograms. Or John Travolta taught me that in Pulp Fiction. The Royale with cheese, or great memories back from, that was what, 91, 92, maybe 91, with Samuel L. Uma Thurman. So let's do that backwards. Okay, so we said that 50 degrees Fahrenheit is 10 degrees Celsius. So now let's do it backwards. So you know it's 50 degrees Fahrenheit. You want to know what it is in Celsius. So all you have to do is you do 50 negative 32, and then you multiply that by 0.55, and that'll give you 9.99, which is rounded up to 10 degrees Celsius. Formula, simple formula that it's good to know when you're keeping medakas or goldfishes or even koi, right? So let's go back to the short topic I thought it was, but I tend to ramble on. The 3 key temperature indicators. So I'll start with the first one. 60 degrees Fahrenheit, 15 degrees Celsius. Their digestive absorption rate goes down. What does that mean? That means they're going to have a harder time utilizing the nutrients that they're getting. It's either, it could be from the food that we give them, natural sources, whatnot. So it becomes a lot more difficult for them to utilize or get the benefits of the nutrients from what they're consuming. And it puts a lot on their body, a lot of toll on their body. So what do? You just know that you should, number one, start feeding less, because if you keep on giving them the same amount of food, let's say these little flakes, you'll notice that they're not going to be able to consume all of that within the same given time as you're used to during the summer when it was warm. And during the warmer season, they were probably gobbling it up, but now you'll probably know that they're slowing down. Once they do consume that, again, they don't have stomachs. It's going to take longer, and it's going to take a lot of energy, number one, which is the most important part. Heading into winter, it's going to use up a lot of their energy to break down anything, right, through their short digestive tract. It only takes about 2.5 hours for them to pass the food, what they're consuming at this moment, until it comes out. All right, so one of the actions you can take is, we just talked about giving less food. And number 2, you could change their diet. You can't get these in the US. Hikari should. And what I look at is their protein level. So on the back, this is like Medaka no Mai complete, right? And this is a protein above 48%. When the temperature starts dropping below 60, this one is called maintenance, and this one only has 38% protein. It's easier for them to digest, basically, because they don't have a stomach, right? So that's action number 2, basically. Again, what do you do in the United States? You just try, if you can, to look for food that has less protein. I think I saw some Hikari products, the goldfish products, that had a lower percentage. But again, if you look at all the other food manufacturers, I mean, they're all going for high protein, right? So it is difficult, but just know. But if you don't have any a source for low protein foods, again, just give less, right? Give very little. We tend to overfeed these guys and girls anyways. So less is better, regardless of what the season is. Less is better. The second key indicator, 50 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 10 degrees Celsius. That's when their growth really starts slowing down, right? And when I'm talking about these key indicators, I'm talking about the average temperature of the day. Okay, not the lowest, not the highest, but the average temperature of the day. So what are the things that we should be thinking about when the temperature comes down? Knowing that the growth slows down, I think I talked about, does size matter? How big should your medaka be to be able to survive during the winter? anything below 2/3 of an inch, there's a high possibility that they're not going to make it through the winter. Again, depending on where you are, regionally it changes, right? If you're in Hawaii, you're fine. And this is for outdoors. So if you have them outdoors in tubs, regardless of where you are, when you start seeing the average temperature, when it starts dropping below 50, just know that they're really not going to grow anymore. So if you do have any Medaka that are way below that 2/3 of an inch, you should consider bringing them indoors to a warmer climate. It could be an aquarium, it could be an indoor pond, anything that is close to where the average temperature is 60 degrees Fahrenheit, because we know that's when they're able to eat and they're able to actually utilize everything that they consume without using up all this energy, which basically weakens them, right? So if you're going to leave them outdoors, which a lot of people do, there will be a percent that will survive. I mean, we're talking about these little tiny little guys. Look at these guys. Here's my pinky right here, right? That's the larger one of the group. And by the way, this is what I did this weekend. I went to tubs and I scooped up the little boys and girls that I knew that weren't going to make it, simply because they were just way too small. But yeah, some of these guys will survive. And what's going to happen is, come spring, when you start seeing the temperature fluctuations, right? When the temperature fluctuates on a day-to-day basis, when it's really cold, cooler in the morning, and when it gets really warm, it puts a toll on their body and it really weakens them. So they just made it, these little guys right here, they just made it through the winter. And of the ones that survived, now they're put through this new stress test spring, where it's cold in the morning, but it's getting pretty warm during the daytime. A lot of them won't make it, right? They'll disappear. If they do survive that, at this size, this is when they should be really growing, right? And because they weren't able to experience that natural growth because of the temperature being so low, you're going to see a lot of deformities. Their body wasn't able to develop naturally. At this age, they are supposed to develop at a certain rate. And because they weren't able to do that, you're going to see a lot of deformities. You will see a lot of bent backs, skittish ones that are way too skinny, and you'll see tiny ones that will never really mature properly. You'll see some heads that are rounded, etc., etc. So you're really not going to be able to use those as future parents if you wanted to, if you're breeding them, right? But again, I'm kind of talking from, I could just leave these outdoors and that's fine. And you know, you have Medaka, you love them, and nature will take its course. But I think a lot of people that are reading up on Medaka, like, they're interested in getting more fry, right? It's fun. It's not a numbers game again, but I think for a lot of people, that is what they're, one of the reasons that they got into Medaka is like, oh, you could get all these little babies. I start with 6 and now I have all these, and what am I going to do? A question, or a couple questions I was asked during the summer is like, when do I stop collecting the eggs? What does it mean by collecting the eggs? Collecting the eggs just means, well, instead of just leaving them in an outdoor pond and letting them do their thing like this one is right here, they're just doing what they want to do. This is one of my little experimental tanks. When you're collecting, that's when you have those spawning mops, and you're actually removing the eggs in most cases, and you're trying to bring up these little hariko. They call them hariko when they're born, right? And they're like, when do I stop? Because they're still producing, laying eggs, and it's September. It's end of September. Well, here's your answer. If you have something prepared indoors, that's fine. But if you don't, these guys were probably born in September sometime. And if I didn't have a system in place indoors, like an indoor aquarium or an indoor pond, majority of these guys will just melt away outside. So you kind of know like when to stop collecting eggs, because if you're not going to be able to take care of them, and if that is your whole purpose, then why bother, right? I mean, it's life, but let nature take care of that. The eggs will it'll get eaten outdoors, you know. The parents will eat it, and if they hatch, you know, these little, these are chigos now. Chigos will get eaten, but that's the natural ecosystem, right? The stronger will survive, right? So the third, we talked about the 60 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the digestive absorption rate slowing down. The second was the 50 degrees Fahrenheit, which was the growth stopping, slowing down. And the last one is the 44 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 6.5 degrees Celsius. Well, that's when they'll go to the bottom and they'll stop moving. They'll stop eating. They're not hibernating, they're not sleeping, but they're just in still motion, so they don't have to utilize their energy, right? If they need to, don't worry, they will. They'll get these microorganisms from the green water through their gills, or they'll just munch on some of this, whatever you have left in the bottom of the tank. There should be a lot of moam left underneath there, so they'll munch on that, and they'll figure out a way to survive. So for the smaller medakas that you have around this size, under 2/3, the chances of them surviving is very low. And I explained what happens to the ones that do survive, right? So you want to make sure if you want to keep them, you collect these. And I spent the weekend collecting these from the various bins that I have. And you want to bring them inside before the average temperature turns 44. So can I wait till the average temperature turns 44? Well, I mean, you can't do it in one day. You got to set things up indoors and all that stuff. So you want to look at the calendar and kind of forecast to see when it's going to get to that point. When do I start actually physically collecting these to get them ready to move inside is when I do start seeing some of these little ones floating on the top of the tubs. A lot of them came from here, actually. A lot of them came from this tub yesterday. And I don't know if it'll zoom in, but yeah, the ones that you could obviously kind of see from over here, I think they have a good chance of making it. And they still have another couple weeks to grow. So, but a lot of these tiny ones that I just scooped up, they all came from there. These guys will not make it. Last week I started seeing a few floating on the top, and they were all about this size. Right. So that's when I'll monitor the average temperature, and then I'll look at the tubs that I have, and I'll figure out when I need to start moving so I have enough time, right? Because once you collect these, now you have to get them used to the indoor temperature. So I'll bring this bin in, let it sit for 24 hours, and I'll slowly start removing the water from here and then adding some of the water from the tanks that I have running. The tanks that I have running indoors, it's an aquarium. It's not heated again. It has a light. It has a sponge filter, and it runs all year long. So they end up going in there for the winter. So 20 minutes. I try to keep it in 10 minutes, but I can't do it. So I apologize. I know, like, these videos should not be that long, but it's a casual style. So again, let me just summarize what I talked about. The 3 key temperature indicators: 60 degrees Fahrenheit, 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and 44. 60 degrees Fahrenheit is when their digestive absorption rate starts going down, where I explained it. So when it starts slowing down, so just think about switching your food and feed less. Less is better. The second one, 50 degrees Fahrenheit, their growth stops, so or starts slowing down. So start thinking about removing these little babies, if that is your plan, right? And 44 degrees Fahrenheit, that's when these guys are going to stop moving. So just make sure you plan well ahead of that point, and experiment, I guess. And this is based on where I live in Pacifica. So all right, that's about it. These little guys right here, yeah, this is the last batch of what I was able to collect from these guys right here. They're Yozakuras. These are the eggs that I got from Japan. I think a lot of people did get eggs from Japan this year for the first time. These guys I got in October of last year, so they're about a year old, and they're good size. Since I had them indoors during the winter, because I got them so late, they had a hard time adapting outdoors. What does that mean? That's the size. It took a while for them to lay eggs, so that's why I did not get a lot of eggs. So that's what these guys are. I have more, but I just happened to just scoop up a few. Again, just to see how they were. And these guys will stay outdoors, and hopefully I'll see them again when the temperature comes up, and they should have a good season next year. When they're young, they're not going to produce as many eggs like the first year, and their eggs are going to be really tiny, and the eggs are going to be weak. So hopefully next year, 2023, I'll start seeing eggs that are a little bit more solid, a little bigger, healthier offsprings. So we'll see. But thank you very mucho gracias for tuning in again. I hope this is like somewhat informational. But again, 60, 50, 44, 15 degrees Celsius, 10 degrees Celsius, 6.5 degrees Celsius. It's a good number to kind of have in the back of your head, especially when we're getting close to winter time. And again, by looking at the forecast, you'll be able to plan ahead, right? Okay, so we'll do it again next time. Hopefully there's a next time. I just have to figure out what I want to talk about. Maybe I'll talk about like tubs for the winter and stuff like that. So, all right, again, MedakaMetal checking out from Pacifica, California, a Kampai Chin Chin. Happy Halloween.